Hi, welcome to another episode of Film Recommendations. This episode, I'm just going to record low-res stream of consciousness. I'm going to be reviewing Skyfall, the new James Bond movie. Now, for those who might have watched previous episodes, I talk a lot about James Bond because I kind of grew up with it in the house. It was unavoidable. Just like I might talk about Star Wars or Star Trek just because it was there when I was growing up. So I've grown up with an appreciation for those films, even if I don't necessarily like them at first. A good example is I did not like a lot of James Bond movies at first. I thought they were weird. I didn't like Star Trek that much at first. I had to kind of grow up into it, and eventually I developed an appreciation for Star Trek. I kind of like Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5 better. Voyager I didn't care for. Enterprise I didn't care for. All those. So I thought that going back and doing a prequel series to Star Trek was overdone and kind of hackney, and was way too much fan service and whatnot. It was trying too hard, was basically my point. And I kind of have that same feeling about rebooting the whole series when they did Star Trek, just the movie Star Trek. They tried to make it too much into science fiction, science fantasy rather than science fiction. I've talked about this in previous episodes. I don't care for it as a film because they actually tried to make it more like Star Wars. They made it much more about ship battles, and they made it much more about Kirk's quest to, become the whatever of the Federation, the hero of the Federation or whatever. And it just gets old hat really quickly because you've seen it before. 100 times you've seen it, Oh, he's on an ice planet and he's been attacked, and he's in a barren wasteland, and there's the old wise man who's coming to help him and guide him on his quest. And in this case, it's older Spock, played by Leonard Nimoy, and it's just like, ugh, no more. I don't need it. No more of it. But Skyfall, all that being said, is a darn good movie, and I'll tell you why. And there may be some spoilers ahead, so if you don't want spoilers, then don't watch this yet. But I'm gonna give Skyfall about. It gets pretty much a 9.5 out of 10. There wasn't really anything I didn't like about it, but I'll tell you why it kind of gets the half point off in a little minute. So that being said, Skyfall, directed by Sam Mendes, screenplay by Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, and John Logan. Daniel Craig is actually in better form in this one than he was in Quantum of Solace, which was kind of Casino Royale Part 2, if you remember, if you bothered to see it, or if you didn't fall asleep while watching it. Quantum of Solace was really very draining as a Bond film. Daniel Craig's character looked tired. He was clearly kind of showing that the life of the spy was not agreeing with him, because he was basically on a quest for revenge. But that being said, this film kind of renews the Daniel Craig Bond and shows it for being something more. In this particular case, they actually show that James Bond is not different agents going through time, where it's been different people, in fact, and just a cover name, where it is in fact more one person is the idea. that's been kind of built up in the canon, that it's different people, different agents taking on the mantle of James Bond 007 as a cover name. In this film, they kind of dispelled that and say, no, this is actually one person. This is who he is. He is one person, and it just is like a comic book where the world kind of changes, but James Bond remains the same as a figure for the secret agent. So anyway, it says here on Wikipedia that, and I'm just going to read it off because it's a good summary usually. In the film, Bond investigates an attack on MI6. It transpires that this is part of a plot by former MI6 operative Raul Silva to humiliate, discredit, and ultimately kill M as revenge against her for betraying him. The film sees the return of two recurring characters after an absence of 2 films. Q, played by Ben Whishaw, and Eve Moneypenny, played by Naomi Harris. Skyfall is the last film of the series for Judi Dench, who played M, a role which she had played in the previous 6 films. The position is subsequently filled by Ralph Fiennes' character, Gareth Mallory, who is introduced over the course of the film. Mendes was approached to direct the film after the release of Quantum of Solace in 2008. Development was suspended when MGM encountered financial troubles and did not resume until December 2010. During this time, Mendes remained attached to the project as a consultant. The original screenwriter, Peter Morgan, left the project during the suspension. When production resumed, Logan, Purvis, and Wade continued writing what became the final version of the script. Filming began in November 2011 and primarily took place in the United Kingdom, China, and Turkey. So, yeah, that's kind of the gist of what you need to know about the production for the film. Javier Bardem, I'm probably butchering that name, plays the bad guy, Raul Silva, and he is, I think, a better villain in a lot of ways than Sean Bean's character in GoldenEye, since it's basically the same kind of villain. They're both blonde-haired for one. They're both kind of exiled secret agents, kind of like in Burn Notice, if you've ever watched that, where the secret agent is kind of left to his own devices because he's considered compromised, so they can't take him back in for debriefing because he might be a mole or a double agent. He also might be, anyway, so Raul Silva was cast off and left adrift, and he ended up then becoming kind of like the Joker in Dark Knight, in fact, or even like Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. So, that being said, his character is actually very much against the Bond villain archetype, in that he is much more in it for personal satisfaction than as part of some greater plot, necessarily. He is only after one target, M. In GoldenEye, Sean Bean's character, who I'm blanking on the name, I think he was 008 or something. He's going after Bond, basically, as well as trying to kind of hold the world hostage, that kind of thing. But aside from that, you also have other villains over time who've kind of gone after M and Bond and things like that. In The World Is Not Enough, the oil baroness is basically that figure where she's going after M and Bond and is going to blow them up with like a bomb, basically. So I mean, that's worth considering. That's certainly something. I don't think that The World Is Not Enough was a very good movie, and I don't even necessarily think that GoldenEye was that good a movie. I think that the Pierce Brosnan films were kind of lacking because they were relying on brand name recognition to just make sequels and put them out, and the difference was just new stunts, different plots, you know, always trying to just change it a little bit and offer a little bit of a plot device. And to that effect, I love the fact that Q sits there in an art museum after MI6 has been attacked. I don't like the fact that they made Q this young prodigy genius who like is a whiz at computer programming and everything. I don't care for that. But I like the fact that they also kind of decide to go with a bit more realistic technology. You know, oh, a car that cloaks, or an exploding pen. That was a big one that they actually pointed out, which I found really funny, was the exploding pen from GoldenEye. They were like, yeah, we don't make exploding pens anymore. So I was just like, oh, that's a relief. They actually went with more realistic technology, like in Batman Begins, like I was saying. A gun that has a palm print reader, a micro transmitter where you flip a switch and it sends for help. You know, no noise, no fuss, and it's easily something that you could maybe swallow or shove up your bum. But my point there is that basically, you know, this is a really excellent plot device to the movie. That's all he gets. He gets a distress device and a gun that only he can fire. And those two plot devices come in handy, because if that's all you have, then really that's all you need. And if you look at the Daniel Craig movies, he doesn't use a lot of gadgets. He is not a gadget guy. The most gadgets they ever used in the Daniel Craig ones was a portable heart defibrillator, cardiac defibrillator, where, you know, he's ingested poison that's going to stop his heart and he needs to come back to life. And he's, you know, having an arrhythmia. He's having a bit of a heart attack, and so they need to use that defibrillator to kind of get his heart beating regularly again. They aren't to be used if your heart has just flat out stopped, but if it's in arrhythmia, then, you know, you can get your heart beating regularly and you can take some kind of antidote to the poison that's causing your nerves to send out the wrong impulses to cause your heart to beat regularly, which is basically what the point of that poison was in that particular film, Casino Royale. Not to belabor the subject. Too late, right? Anyway. So they tried to go with more realistic plot devices in these movies. Take it back to basics. Take it back to simple things. So I like the fact that they do have a certain amount of retro quality to where we're back to basics. We're not doing a whole bunch of different stuff. They have a hail back to Goldfinger right there in the middle of the film, where Bond is taking M away because Silva has broken out of prison after they capture him. It's like in Batman, like in The Dark Knight. It was his plan to get captured so that then he could get closer to M. He knew that they would be plugging into his laptop so that so that they could figure out what he was going after. And as soon as they figured it out, a virus comes in and opens all the doors in the building, so that then he can just walk right out, meet up with his agents who are disguised as policemen. Again, this is right out of The Dark Knight with the Joker, so that then he can go after M, who is at a tribunal as to her competence. And her whole view of this is, I'm not going to be taken down by some committee or panel that just decides I'm no good anymore. If I'm going to be taken down from this position, it's going to be because I finished the job, I go down fighting, this gets taken, you know, everything gets taken care of, no loose ends, no walk of shame, no packing up my things from the office. Let my things get packed up because my will decides it. You know, her last will and testament. So that's kind of what she goes with, and I think it's actually a really cool idea. In all. So after the instance where M gets attacked, Bond basically kidnaps M, but, you know, lets the Home Office know that he's doing this, and lets them know where, you know, what the plan is and everything, to just a select few, including Ray Fiennes' character, including a couple of people back at MI6, so that they can keep it on the down low in case Silva has any moles. But they also make it so that he is leaving a trail of breadcrumbs so that Silva can come to them, but in an isolated location, so that if they're taken out in a place where then Silva can be taken out, you know, by MI6 or whoever. And, you know, it's kind of a last stand kind of scenario, because they just prove that there's no place in the modern technological world that that they're safe from. So the best way is to go back to basics. So they go, and Bond breaks out the old Aston Martin from Goldfinger, and she gives him a little bit of smart mouth about how it's not very comfortable and there's not very much room. So he flips the top off the gear shift with the big red button for the ejector seat, and, you know, basically jokes that that, you know, hey, you don't have to be riding in here, I don't have to be doing this. And it's just a better story in all. After that point, I think the intro was phenomenal. I think they did I haven't seen as good an intro since Casino Royale. I thought the Casino Royale intro was beautiful, high intensity, high action. This one had a lot of the same feel of the older intros, but was very much a modern one with lots and lots of excellent quality CGI, so that you're just kind of flowing through these abstracts that eventually form things. It was a little bit like the video for Crazy by Gnarls Barkley, back when CeeLo Green was partnered with the other guy. Anyway, so I thought that was a fantastic element to the film, and it has this wonderful flow as an adventure story, and for over 2 hours of film, it gives you this very satisfying feeling at the end. I don't like it that films have gotten so much shorter. I don't like the idea that a Bond film, which is supposed to be this adventure film, this really exciting adventure where you're taken all over the world to different things, and you have all these different elements to the story that need to be resolved, but you need to have a certain amount of slowness to it. I don't like the idea that Bond films only come in at 90 minutes or something like that. It's not as satisfying to me if a film is only 90 minutes. 2 hours is a good length to me. It gives you enough time to process what's going on. I was watching the previews for, God, it was some movie. I couldn't even process what it was because all the clips were just boom, 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 boom. And I was losing my mind with it. I was like, I have no idea what the heck that movie's about. Because as soon as they clip to one thing, they clip to another thing. And it was like the blink of an eye. As soon as you blink, you miss something. So I didn't need that. This film, you start off with a mission in Turkey, and it's a great chase scene. Oh my god. Bond is going after this guy who has a hard drive with a list of NATO agents who are implanted moles in terror groups. I mean, that's a great MacGuffin to start off the whole film. You know, the thing that everyone wants. And this assassin has taken it, and that's where you have the train scene that's been shown in the previews, where he just hops into a train as the back is ripped off and then just adjusts his cuff and moves on. You know, like, no big deal. So, that being said, I thought that part was phenomenal. That whole intro scene. And then Moneypenny, who you don't know she's Moneypenny, she's just Evie. She is on the mission too as the driver, and she has a sniper rifle at the ready to shoot the assassin who has the hard drive, so that then Bond can just take the hard drive and get away. Anyway, so that unfortunately doesn't quite work out, as Evie ends up shooting Bond instead. Bond falls off, the assassin gets away with the hard drive and gives it to our villain, Raul Silva, who is nowhere. He's in the middle of nowhere, you don't know where he is. Bond comes out of hiding afterwards, after all the world thinks he's dead. He comes out of hiding because MI6 got attacked. He's living on this beautiful tropical beach, making love to a gorgeous woman every night, drinking himself to death. You know, so exactly how you would figure Bond would want to just live out the rest of his days, you know. Killing himself by liver cirrhosis, and too much sex. Way to go. Alright, but he comes out of hiding because M and the Ministry need him, because they are directly under attack. I think that's a brilliant plot element too. And the Silva character uses his this information, the MacGuffin, to stir British intelligence and the British government into questioning M, so that then, you know, she might be removed from power, and if she is removed from power, then she is even more vulnerable. But as it is, Silva hacks right into M's computer, and then a couple of his agents plant a bomb in her office so that it blows up all evidence. Or no, it's not even that. He engineers a gas leak, a buildup of gas, and then an explosion through hacking into the system. I mean, it's like, well, I don't know if you could really do that, but okay, whatever. It is kind of a brilliant kind of plot device that this guy is a hacker, and that's how he's doing everything. And they reveal his base is basically an island where the Chinese had a chemical plant, and he hacked in and programmed their computers to show that there was a chemical leak. So then they evacuated in like a day and cordoned off the island, even though there wasn't a chemical leak, and he just was able to move right in and set up all these servers and set up an entire untraceable hacking operation for all around the globe, and, you know, get his revenge. So he has basically an island all to himself. He has men at his command. He has a sex slave that he buys from the mafia, and, you know, so he is a villain who has everything. He is untouchable. He is able to do all these jobs for people and get plenty of money from the mob to take down corporations and whatnot, or take money from the corporations to take down other corporations. That kind of thing, because these corporations now have more money than many nations, and so they're able to just do as they please without any kind of regulation. So it's an interesting plot device. That's how he makes his money. He also has an interesting motif to his viruses, where there is sort of a Mexican-style sugar skull from Dia de los Muertos as his thing. So, you know, hey, creepy and very much part of his cultural identity there. You know, given that's kind of a Spanish-Hispanic thing, that very ornately designed skull and everything. I don't know if he's Mexican or Spanish. I think he's Spanish, but it might be possible that he's just kind of borrowing it as a motif because he finds it pleasing. I'm not sure. Or if it's actually kind of a Spanish thing as well. But that being said, it's still a really cool element. You know, he has plenty of style and panache. He is an over-the-top villain in a lot of ways. They're just different from other villains, where there isn't the, you know, oh, look at my posh surroundings, like with Dr. No, where he's trying to bring Bond on board. He knows that Bond won't be converted, but where he does a little bit of a twist on the classic Bond villain, he actually has Bond tied up to a chair and starts groping him. He starts groping on James Bond, you know, making it quite clear that Silva is not bound by conventional sexual mores. He is, you know, just about whatever pleases him and whatever he finds attractive. So he may be bisexual, omnisexual, doesn't matter. He is, you know, it's just an interesting motif because, you know, when he strikes at M, he does it very secretively, very unannounced, but then later on when they're at the Bond mansion, Skyfall, where Bond grew up, he he sends in some goons to you know, sort of stir them out of hiding in the building and get them to like run along outside to get to a car or whatever. But when those guys fail because they've set up some really cool booby traps, Silva comes in an attack helicopter with music playing, and he likes, you know, having music that has the word boom in it. So, you know, he does this. He has like this old-timey music playing where it goes boom, da 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 boom, and that's when he's back on the abandoned island in the China Sea or whatever. So, I mean, that's just a really cool element to this particular part of the plot. You know, that he is over the top. He is not strictly a masculine or feminine villain. He is, but he is vengeful. He is spiteful, and he is not willing to play by conventional rules. And he is more just a guy with unlimited means at his control. But what is amazing is that Bond and M and the groundskeeper for Skyfall Manor win. M gets shot and dies, you know, but that's how she wanted to go down. But you know, the groundskeeper and Bond survive and win the day and take out the villain. And what's also really good is that it's all a certain amount of old school stuff. They go, at the end, they go back to having Bond just go to M for his mission. This time M is Ray Fiennes. Moneypenny is there in the office. They have Q. So now there's a certain amount led to believe that, you know, 50 years after Bond got started with Dr. No, you're now going to have sort of a callback in the next film to having sort of a classic Bond feel to the film, where You won't have a bunch of crazy gadgets like you had in the Roger Moore days and the Pierce Brosnan days, especially. You know, with those particular Bonds, you had crazy gadgets and gimmicks as the plot devices for the films. You know, lasers and watches and everything, where it was kind of over the top and like, come on, that's not even realistic. That's just totally, we're going to pull this out of our butt kind of thing. Some of this stuff was actually reasonable technology, like what is it, a car that you can drive from a cell phone or something like that. They actually had that. That's real technology. But, you know, the Mythbusters actually proved that an exploding pen is completely unrealistic. You could not have a pen that exploded with a huge amount of force without it being incredibly unstable. You know, so it for the size of the pen that it was. So I love that they're actually kind of going back to the classic stuff. I don't like that they have this young prodigal genius Q. I like that they kind of brought back Moneypenny and they're not just making it, you know, all sexual flirtations. Here it is, you know, that they actually are, you know, interested in one another. They actually are, you know, they're open to having sexuality instead of having it, oh, wink and a nod kind of thing, like in Roger Moore's Bond. By the time you get to A View to a Kill, which was his last film, where they kind of did away with Moneypenny after that for a little while. They kind of tried to put that on the side because that was kind of the old Bond. They were trying to reboot it a little bit and make it a bit more edgy for the late 80s. But by the time you get to A View to a Kill, you have Roger Moore and the woman who played Moneypenny, and they're both looking really old, and it's just kind of creepy having them flirt. You know, you don't need that. All of the actors were getting really old. By the time you got to Pierce Brosnan's era, where they kind of had Moneypenny played by a new woman, a younger woman, it's like, well, okay, don't really need that. Having the same guy play Q, that was really cool. I was glad that they did that. And then they had John Cleese take over as Q for a while, and then he kind of disappeared when they brought Daniel Craig in, and they didn't have Q anymore. They didn't have Moneypenny anymore. They had M stay over from the Pierce Brosnan series, played by Judi Dench. She was M for pretty much all of the Pierce Brosnan series, and that was a really great element. So they kept that, and now they're going to have Ralph Fiennes as M, which I'm not quite sure how I feel about having Voldemort / Jonathan Steed playing M, but okay. Anyway, so, I mean, if they can have Jonathan Steed in A View to a Kill as one of the characters, then I guess that's fine. In this case, it's a different actor, Patrick McNee, I believe is the actor. Anyway, so, that being said, I think that Skyfall is a much better movie than Quantum of Solace. I think it's really brought back a lot of what Bond needed to be, that got the excitement going with Casino Royale, that with Quantum of Solace they could have done in like a short. They could have done in a shorter film. You know, Quantum of Solace just left so much wanting. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of action. It was all about plot. It was all about him getting revenge against the bad guy. So it just didn't quite work as well for a lot of audiences. But in this case, Skyfall kind of makes up for that by having a bitter victory at the end, and having kind of a return to a sort of form of normalcy, and a lot of lessons learned by from where they were in the Pierce Brosnan portion of the Bond era, or the James Bond franchise. So the Brosnan page in that, you know, where you actually had the element of sort of a hacker character in the Carver character from Tomorrow Never Dies. I thought that was one of the best ones because the villain was actually using the more modern sense of things. He was using IT to basically affect things, to make the Chinese, who were the big isolationist superpower, kind of attack Britain and everything. So I thought that was a great plot element to the story, and having both the Chinese and the British kind of working to find out what's going on and stop Carver from actually doing what he was going to try and do. I thought that was a brilliant aspect to it, and I thought that kind of bringing back that plot element of having the one thing that has kind of been the back door for our, in terms of vulnerability for our countries, cyber terrorism. That one vulnerability, in a lot of ways, as the plot device, that's a great move, because that takes it into, how do you track these people down? How do you get them? Well, you have to go incredibly low tech. You have to get away from doing everything with with all this. You can have only so much cybersecurity before eventually you have to send an agent to find things out and get it all together. You can't rely on thinking that you are just not vulnerable to this. So MI6 has to reconsider how it's doing things, and they have to go way back to basics, to the oldest bunker that they've just kept updated and modern in case anything should happen, from World War II, back when MI6 really got started up in the Bond franchise. This is where Ian Fleming kind of wrote about the Bond series taking place, was in this underground part of London that is in fact a real thing. They did have this back from the Churchill era, and it carried over for a long time, and eventually the ministry kind of moved above ground along with the rest of government, and then eventually they kind of took on this public persona, sort of. You still can. They weren't a transparent organization of the government. Anyway, point being that they give a good analysis of the world of intelligence, the world of things, but without getting too lectury like I've been talking about all the different aspects of it. So that being said, I'm going to cut this off and stop it because it's going on 40 minutes now. So I think that's a pretty good review of the movie Skyfall. I hope I haven't spoiled it too much for you so that you won't still enjoy it. There are still a lot of things I've left out so as not to ruin the film for you. Things that are elements of style, panache, substance, and storytelling, and spectacle. That's a lot of S's and P's. Anyway, so I hope that you go and check out Skyfall in the theaters, on DVD, on demand, whatever you're going to see it as. I highly recommend it. It's a very entertaining film. Not so much friendly for the kiddies, not a family film, but Bond is not a family franchise. So, check it out with adult friends, teenagers, that kind of thing, and see how you feel about it. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Take care. Bye.